Hello friends, Tal here and welcome to a brand new video. Today taking a look at basically the chronological order of changes that are going to be coming in with patch 7.1.5. Now, I want to do a class guide for each of the tanks for 7.1.5, something that I failed to do at the beginning of Legion and even into 7.1. This video, though, is not going to be that. Originally, my idea was I was going to jump in the PTR, I was going to test the tanks, I was going to talk to you about them, but the truth of the matter is that there are PTR builds coming out every single week, changing things every single time, and this patch isn't even expected to be released until sometime early January, maybe the middle of January, and it is December 15th right now. So there's going to be extra changes, there's going to be more item changes which affect classes more than you might think, and what this video is basically going to be is going to be not a very clean one. It's going to be a little bit loopy, a little bit just kind of looking all over the place, but essentially you can see here I have multiple tabs open, and this is MMO Champions chronologically ordered list of 7.1.5 changes since right before BlizzCon up until now. If they've missed something, I'm sorry, I haven't been able to go ahead and get it. I had to go back a bunch of pages trying to find this. I couldn't find a complete list of all the changes as they have happened to kind of just go off on, but I figured this is a good way of not only showing what has changed, but also the mindset and the thinking as they've gone by and done PTR changes. Now remember, this is PTR. This can change at any moment. Don't take this as truth. Only take it as truth for the 15th December 2016. Any day after that, this could all change. But I want to give you guys opinions and let you know what you have to expect moving forward for the game. If that all sounds great to you and you want to go ahead and watch this, fantastic, excellent, I appreciate it. If not, no worries, go ahead and tune out. I do just want to let you guys know, due to some of the way that YouTube has changed its recent algorithm, since I've been gone, I've been learning all about it. Basically, I kind of have to beg you guys for likes. I have to beg you guys, if you like the video, to make sure you subscribe to the channel, and also to comment down below your thoughts on the different things. Apparently, videos are rated very, very highly for a lot of interaction and what they call engagement, which is likes, subscribes, and comments down below. If you can go ahead and do that for me, I'd greatly appreciate it. It helps me continue to do this for you guys and continue to give you content. With all that being said, let's go ahead and take a look at the first of the patch notes that came out, and specifically how they affect the tanks going forward in Legion. Alright, so the first thing that I want to go ahead and point out is that they have added new legendary items, and they've changed some of the ones that currently exist. Now you're going to notice throughout all these different tabs that we're going to be opening up, multiple changes to different legendaries. More than anything, it's been affecting the DPS specs of the game, but there have been significant tank ones that have come in. A particular one it's a trinket that's just stupid, that affects all tanks, but you're going to notice that is the first big change. They're adding more legendaries. God help us all. And you can go ahead and start to see some of these changes right here. The first one is that tanking neck, the one not tanking neck, but the shield on you that gives you 30% or 15% of your maximum health every 30 seconds, as long as you don't take damage. That got updated to every 30 seconds you gain an absorption for 30% of your maximum health for 30 seconds. So this is a huge buff. It's a fantastic shield that's on you every 5 seconds. Or every 30 seconds, it gets renewed, and you do not have to rely on not taking damage. It's a very big shield. It's based on your health. It's going to be proccing out of your control, but you can track it to know when it's going to be popping up, and it gives you a very powerful mitigation boost. In fact, this neck was recently changed. You're going to see that in the very, very last one of the patch notes that we're going to be taking a look at. But without that change, it was already being considered by all raiders, not tanks, not healers, not DPS, all raiders, that this was going to be one of the most overpowered items in the game, because it was going to let healers have an easier time with certain mechanics, especially for the DPS. They were going to be taking as much damage, and you were going to be able to just abuse that in raiding going into Nighthold. That has been nerfed somewhat, but it's still a fantastic legendary, especially as a tank. I cannot tell you enough, this will be a good legendary once the patch comes out. 7.1.5, it'll be good for tanking. The next one that will affect tanks, if you've been unlucky enough to get it, is Setfuse's Secret. It's the ring that everyone hates. It's going to also trigger from interrupts. It's going to give you 25% haste up from 15, and it has a 30-second internal cool, or 30-second cooldown essentially. So you'll be able to proc it more easily. It's going to give you more haste. It's still pretty bad, especially if there's nothing in the fight game that can be interrupted. And frankly, it's likely that more than just you or in your raid, there's going to be more than one person with Set Fuse's secret. So figuring out who's going to get that haste is probably going to be a DPS more often than not. It affects tanks, but not in a beneficial way, really. As well as the legendary belt that increases the damage that you do to targets above 90% health. That's specifically for the leather wearers, so monks, druids, and demon hunters are going to get access to this. It's going to work on enemies above 85% health, up from 90% or down from 90%, and it's also going to heal you for 100% of the damage done. So it's nice. Raid bosses don't really stay above 85% health for too long, and the beginning of the fight is definitely not when you need the healing. So while nice, it's not gonna, it's not blowing anyone's dick off. Let's go ahead and say it like that. Moving down a little bit, you come to Rune Master's Pauldrons. Now this is talking about Vengeance Demon Hunters. It's now also going to reset the cooldown on your Empower wards and grant you 1 extra charge of Demon Spikes when used. So already very powerful legendary. It's going to go ahead and reset the remaining cooldown on your sigils, which will be very, very beneficial for Sigil Flames, Sigil Chains, things like that. But it's also going to give you more benefit outside of just being a utility. It's going to reset the cooldown on Empower wards, and it's going to grant you 1 charge of Demon Spikes. So nice, but of course you have to invoke Metamorphosis, so you're going to have to use your big cooldown to go ahead and get that. Then we move over to the Druid. This is the chest that gives your passive affinities an extra effect. It's going to increase the effects of Thick Hide, Astral Influence, Feline Swiftness, and Ysera's Gift by 75%, up from 50%. This later on, you're going to see they took this away. They took Thick Hide away. So it's not going to benefit Thick Hide anymore, but your other affinities is still going to go ahead and help out. It's nice. It's nothing that's going to amaze you. I would not suggest you use one of your 2 legendary slots for this if you have the chance to change it. If not, at least know that your affinity is going to get affected. Not really much of a big deal for Guardian Druids, I would say. Alright, so now this one's going to be a little bit of a crazy thing, honestly. You're going to go ahead and see that as we move on, Brewmaster monks are kind of looking like they're going to be the surprise sleeper hit of the 7.1.5 patch, and maybe even Nighthold. But they're going to have a change to one of the legendaries called the Fundamental Observation. It is the helm that they get. It's going to get a brand new effect. Zen Meditation has a 50% reduced cooldown and is no longer cancelled when you move or when you are hit by melee attacks. So that means for the entire duration of Zen Meditation, you're going to be able to just reduce the damage that you're taking from everything. And it's going to have a lower cooldown, giving them a very powerful additional short-term cooldown that they can use. They're already amazing at mitigating physical damage. They're looking very strong. You have to have the legendary, of course, but it is, maybe erring a little bit too much on the side of power given over to them. Moving over to Protection Paladin, there's going to be a change or an addition to Uther's Guard. Now, what it usually does now is it's going to increase the duration of your blessings on targets, but on top of that, it's going to heal them for 15% of the maximum health. This is just fantastic, honestly. I mean, you don't always need to use your Blessing of Freedom, but you now have this short-term cooldown that's going to give a target 15% of the max health. It could be you, it could be an ally. It's just a nice, good change. Makes that legendary stronger for them. And then we move on to new legendary items, starting with one of the most overpowered things I've ever seen in this game. You're going to be seeing here the Trinket Archimonde's Infinite Command. Now, this is the tooltip that exists right now as of the 15th of December. When this originally came out, I believe it was actually gain and absorb shield for about 50% of your maximum health for 10 seconds, and when the 50 or 75, it was high. I think it was, I don't want to say 100 because that doesn't sound right, but I was pretty sure it was around 75% of your health, or 50 or something like that. And when the shield is consumed or expires, it dealt all the damage to nearby enemies split evenly. As you can see now, it's been changed to absorb shield for 40% of your maximum health for 10 seconds. When the shield is consumed or expires, 75% of that damage is dealt to everybody. It's very, very, very powerful, especially when I first read it before they got changed and adjusted and the tooltip changed with it. This is a tank trinket that's going to be stupidly powerful. As you can see, it has strength, agility, or intellect. So obviously strength and agility is what would be used. And you can see it has versatility and mastery, 2 very powerful stats for most of the tanks. Not everybody, but most of them. And just giving you that amazing shield that's on a 1.2 minute cooldown. And then it does damage. Like, that's Oh, this is part of the reason that I made my video the other day about how they keep adding legendaries and making them stronger. Now, to Blizzard's credit, they did say that they're changing the strength of a lot of legendaries, which is why this is 40% and 75% damage now. But still, adding more legendaries just I don't like the precedent this sets. The other thing they have to keep in mind is that you're also going to be getting Kill Jaden's Burning Wish. Now, I do not know if tanks can use this. I haven't actually tested on the PTR just yet. This is on my list of things to test. But Kill Jaden's Burning Wish is going to give you about 400 of critical strike, haste, mastery. It's going to give you agility and strength. But the on-use effect is going to launch a vortex of destruction that seeks your current enemy. It's going to explode, dealing a critical strike to all enemies within 10 yards for 400,000 fire damage. I believe, through testing, this was proven to not give you healing as a Vengeance Demon Hunter from your artifact traits. But besides that, that's and the PTR testing that's been going on, people have been saying it's been doing an absolutely astronomical amount of damage. So it's a little scary. I don't know if you can use it as a tank. I'm going to test that. I will come back to you guys with solid evidence of whether you can or cannot. But still, very powerful trinket that's going to be coming in. And then you also have to keep in mind Velen's Future Sight. Now, this does only indirectly affects tanks. It's a healing cooldown. It's going to be increase your healing damage by 50%, causes 50% of overhealing on players to be redistributed to 3 nearby injured allies for 10 seconds. It's just smart healing. It's important to know that these kinds of effects are going to be in the game because it's going to make healing even easier for healers. But also keep in mind that as players get stronger, Blizzard knows sort of what they're doing. If you looked at TOV, that means the damage in Nighthold's probably going to be higher. So as the healers get stronger, the fights get a little bit more difficult. So keep that in mind. Alright, and then we come to a Druid Legendary. Now this is a balanced Druid Legendary that causes Moonfire to deal 20% increased damage and also hit another nearby enemy within 20 yards of the target. Now, again, one of my things to test, I do not know if this works as a Guardian Druid with Galactic Guardian, but being that I can trigger trinkets, I would imagine that this might be a possibility. Now, obviously, it's going to be very difficult to get this legendary because as a Guardian Druid, it's not like you want to run around and balance all day, every day, and trying to get legendaries just to get one very specific legendary from the entire pool of legendaries. But if you do happen to get lucky, you happen to get this, that Galactic Guardian is already overpowered in that tier. They've made changes to the other talents on the tier that you compete with it. But with this legendary, that's just an astronomical amount of damage that could be happening freely to the Guardian Druid if it procs. And again, is an example of that kind of slippery slope and that mixing and matching that these legendaries are causing by being all separate and not being just different effects depending on your spec. Then you come to a Brewmaster Wrist Legendary. Each time you dodge or an enemy misses you, the remaining cooldown on your brews is reduced by 1 second. Brewmasters already have a very easy time keeping up their Iron Skin brew as far as I'm concerned, so once you get to a certain level of haste. But this gives you more opportunities to use Purifying Brew, reducing more of the damage that's coming in and actually going through and hitting you with the Stagger Dot, and also making your Fortifying Brew come off cooldown quicker. It's a very powerful legendary. It doesn't sound like it would be. It is, believe me. It's just useful for them. And then you come to a Vengeance Demon Hunter Legendary. These are hands, and they're going to cause your Fiery Brand to also heal you for 100% of the damage done, and each enemy hit by your Sigil of Flame increases the instant damage of your next Fiery Brand by 15%, stacking up to 15 times. So this is very much an AoE ability. It's still going to be nice to heal you when you use the Fiery Brand. Sigil of Flame, for the most part, you're using that on cooldown anyways, but if you do happen to hit a bunch of things, it's going to make your Fiery Brand do more damage, do more healing. It's already going to do extra healing from your artifact trait, and having it do even more damage depending on doing, like, if you can time it with a really, really, really good AoE, like let's say 15 mobs spawn somewhere on the side and they're supposed to be bursted down very, very quickly. If you do your Infernal Strike and you have the talent that causes a sigil to appear, you can make your next Fire Brand do an astronomical amount of damage, which is also going to be an astronomical amount of healing, plus a 40% debuff, damage taken debuff on the target. Very powerful legendary. I see this one being used especially in AoE, but just in general, I feel like this is a very good legendary. So DPS wise, it has survival points, but it's more for the damage. Then you come to a Protection Paladin Helm. Light of the Protector gains 1 additional charge and has 10% reduced cooldown. Just powerful. There's nothing else that I can say besides that. Having 2 charges on your Light of the Protector, giving you more healing, allowing you to heal other people with Hand of the Protector, reduce cooldown. There's nothing to say besides powerful and useful. Then you come to a Blood DK Shoulders. Blood Boil increases the damage and healing of your next Death Strike by 20%. It stacks up to five times. Blood Boil is free. You're using it all the time. And not that I think you're going to be able to get too much of a chance to actually time it, but you should be able to get around 2 to 3 Blood Boils off before you have the Death Strike, just making it do more healing on yourself. And hey, maybe now you'll actually get to see a Blood Shield. Remember that mechanic? That was the thing that used to exist. Now, I actually find this next Warrior Legendary kind of hilarious, just because people I know don't see the value in extra Heroic Leap charges and reduced time. I think it's fun. I think it's great. But this shoulder is going to give you 2 more charges of Heroic Leap, 3 charges of Heroic Leap. It's going to be situational, obviously, but I find the more movement, the better as a tank. It's never really done me wrong. Maybe not the most useful numbers-wise and stuff, but I personally wouldn't mind having this heroic if I had more to choose between. Alright, now we come to the actual spell changes for this build. Remember, please, these are all old tooltips. We're going to be covering what has changed, how it has changed over the course of this entire PTR time. But I also want to go ahead and just say, overall in the game, cheat death mechanics for rogues, vengeance demon hunters, blood DKs, all that kind of stuff has been reduced or given an extremely long cooldown because they feel that it's too powerful at the short cooldowns that they had. The only difference is that it will reset on a death, so you don't have to wait. For example, Last Resort for Vengeance Demon Hunters goes to 8-minute cooldown. You do not have to wait 8 minutes if you die. If you die at any point, it gets reset. So that means that you have it up. If you have battle reses, it'll be up for dungeons and things like that. You don't have to worry about that, but it has the longer cooldown. And you're going to go ahead and see that with Blood DKs, which the very first change is that instead of having a 3-minute cooldown on Purgatory, it's going to have a 4-minute cooldown. As well as another change to Spectral Deflection, which is going to be attacks that deal damage for more than 25% of your maximum health will consume an additional Bone Shield charge to further reduce the damage. I believe that's just a tooltip change, but there you go. And also Tightening Grasp. I believe that they actually, so see, they reduced the cooldown of Gorfian's Grasp to 2 minutes, and then Tightening Grasp is going to reduce it further. And then Tombstone is going to consume up to 5 Bone Shield charges, and for each charge consumed, you gain 6 runic power and absorb damage equal to 6% of your maximum health for 8 seconds. So it's just a couple of talent changes here and there, making that good. And the really cool thing is, that I liked for Blood DKs, was that they're going to make Bone Shield only be reduced by melee swings against you. One of my criticisms of the Blood DK kit was that Bone Shield will be reduced by any source of damage. That means the ticking dot on Cenarius will take away a Bone Shield charge every time it takes. It's overpowered, it's stupid, it doesn't make sense. Making it only melee swings against you is a lot better. It's still going to be a lot less value on AoE because everything's melee hitting you, but it will make sense and allow you to actually tank bosses like a normal freaking tank. Now, for Vengeance Demon Hunters, there's a lot of talent reshuffling here that's gonna be happening. For the most part, they're trying to make talents that aren't used as much be used more often. Abyssal Strike is a little bit of a nerf because it's going to be reducing, or a little bit of a buff because they're going to reduce the cooldown of Infernal Strike's Infernal Strike ability, the charges, by 8 seconds instead of 5 seconds. Agonizing Flames got nerfed again to do less damage. Blade Turning got buffed to do 65% of your next year more pain generation. What else? Burning Alive is actually going to it has a tooltip change, but it still spreads normally. You don't have to worry about that. Firebrand is still going to go to everything in the vicinity. As well as Demonic Effusion is a new ability, a new talent that's going to be added that makes you instantly refill your charges of Demon Spikes and generate pain. It's actually not a 108 talent, it's a 110. That was changed later, but it's an instant ability, 2-minute cooldown. Fine. It replaces Nether Bond, which is what makes you share health with a tank. That unfortunately looks like it's been gone now. Fell Eruption got a little bit of a damage buff, as well as a cooldown reduction. A really, really cool change is Fracture is only going to cost 20 pain instead of 40 pain, bringing it actually into the rotation. I think this is actually going to be the single target go-to, especially if you're just doing damage. Last Resort has been nerfed to 8-minute cooldown again, but it will reset on deaths, normal deaths for any reason. Razor Spikes is going to become the single target go-to choice, I believe, because it's going to be doing 30% increased physical damage. You have to keep in mind, though, that not everything you do is physical damage. A large portion of your abilities are fire damage. Sigil of Change is going to have a 1.5-minute cooldown, so that's a little bit of a nerf. Big buff to Soul Barrier. You're going to be having a lot more shielding for each soul fragment that you use just using it baseline. It's going to be 10 pain, and it's going to have a higher cooldown. And then Spirit Bomb got another change to make Frailty last for 20 seconds. You heal for 20% of all damage you deal to enemies with Frailty. A nice little buff. They actually buffed that later on as well to no longer deal shadow damage. It's going to do fire damage, giving you healing from your artifact trait. Spirit Bomb and Fracture are the standouts in this because they're actually probably going to be used now. They're going to be maybe the go-to depending on AoE or single target. Whatever you find yourself in, you got to get used to using these abilities because they're going to be part of the rotation if you're trying to maximize your gameplay as a Vengeance Demon Hunter. Another change is that Demonic Ward is going to be increasing your stamina by 55% instead of 45%. And then the big change is that Metamorphosis is going to have increased capabilities. It's going to be increasing your armor by 100% and greatly empower your shield ability, your shear ability. This new shear ability is actually going to carve a soul every time you do damage. So if you pop Metamorphosis or if you're put into Metamorphosis by the artifact trait, you're going to be able to spam shear and guarantee yourself a couple of souls and soul fragments popped out of that. Now for Guardian Druids, I don't think this is the one where it mentions it, but you actually lose access to Displacer Beast, sadly. But as well, Earth Warden is going to be direct damage with Thrash is going to give you a charge of Earth Warden, reduces that damage the next auto attack you take by 30%. It can have up to 3 charges. It's still probably not going to be the go-to unless you have a very slow, hard-hitting single target boss encounter, maybe similar to Chromog from Blackrock Foundry. But it is a nice little buff. You may be able to use it at some point, as well as Lunar Beam having a reduced cooldown. I believe that Thick Hide, I know it says here it's like the affinity version of it, but I believe Thick Hide was actually nerfed as well for Guardian Druids a little bit to bring them a little bit closer to the other tanks. And the really cool thing is that Pulverize has been buffed. It's going to be doing a significant amount more damage. It's going to be reducing the damage that you take by 9%, moving it into a better position than Rend and Tear for single target fights because of how much more damage Pulverize will provide versus 1% less damage reduction. And there you can see Thick Hide has been reduced for Guardian Druids. Alright, so here's where we get into a little bit of a confusing thing. To be honest, I'm probably not going to explain this entirely right until I actually get a chance to play it, but Prot Warriors are changing in a very meaningful way. You're losing Focus Rage, and Revenge is taking its place while still managing to retain aspects of the Revenge that you know and love now. Does that sound a little confusing? Well, you know what? Focus Rage was a dumb idea to begin with, and it should have stayed as Heroic Strike, personally speaking. What they've done is essentially there's a new effects for a couple of talents. Best Served Cold is now Revenge deals 5% more damage per target hit, up to 5. That's a new talent. Devastator is a new talent, which is basically the same thing as the Demon Blades talent that Havoc Demon Hunters have that they hate. It's basically going to do your auto attacks, deal an additional amount of damage. It generates 5 rage and have a 30% chance to reset the remaining cooldown on Shield Slam. So what does that mean? You're going to have less spam. It's going to be more just, less interaction, I would say. And then Vengeance is getting changed to just include Revenge, not Focus Rage, and affect Ignore Pain in the exact same way. Basically what they want you to do is they want you to use Revenge when it resets for free, and when not, it's going to be a Rage Spender. You're actually going to see here that let's see. Revenge, swinging a wide arc, dealing a bunch of damage. Cause your next Revenge to become free if you dodge or parry, but it's going to cost you 30 rage. Remember that 300 is a tooltip error. 30 rage to do the Revenge. It's going to be a big amount of damage. They want you to feel like you have a meaningful choice between your rage costs, but they also increase the rage cost of Shield Block to 15 from 10. And Devastate and Thunderclap have a 30% chance to reset the remaining cooldown on Shield Slam. That's just, basic built-in. They just added Thunderclap to it. It's, I don't want to say it's good. I want to say maybe it's interesting, but I'm not entirely sure. I have to play with it to figure out how it's going to be affecting the spec realistically. But it's not looking great. And very quickly here, I just want to give a little bit of a summary of what they originally said was their intent with the Protection Warrior changes. While Protection's performance is still solid, we want to provide Revenge a clearer role in the live rotation. Eliminate the need for an off GCD ability, Focus Rage. Who would have guessed that was a good idea to eliminate that? Only me. Everyone else, the entire community that doesn't like it, to deal damage. To address both of these problems, Revenge is made into a higher damage ability. It's used rotationally with its usual activation proc, but it can also be used outside of that by spending Rage. This eliminates the need for Focus Rage. Thunderclap will fill the role of a second Rage generator and be used regularly while tanking. Forgot to mention that Thunderclap is going to give you Rage, as well as going to reset the cooldown on Shield Block or Shield Slam at a certain percentage. And also of note is a new talent that allows you to adopt a more open play style if you prefer, by making your auto attacks trigger devastates automatically rather than fitting it into open space in your rotation. This is Demon Blades for Havoc Demon Hunters. Havoc Demon Hunters hate Demon Blades. Players don't like having their generator be passive. While Protections is probably going to be better because it sounds like it's going to be generating on every single hit, I'm not entirely sure. I have to play with it first. I don't like that they're adding these talents that kind of make things simpler for you, because unfortunately for Havoc Demon Hunters right now, Demon Blades is the go-to best mandatory for high-level rating spec or talent choice, and it makes you not have a filler. You don't get to press Demons Bite anymore. You just have to stop, and if you get Fury when you need the Fury to use your abilities to proc everything, great. If you don't, shit, what are you going to do? It's a scary precedent that they're setting. They're adding more of these talents now to the game. Not crazy about it. Then we come to the next PTR patch changes notes. We're going to go ahead and start with Monk. Diffuse Magic, it's going to have a lower cooldown, 1.5 minute cooldown instead of the original 2 minute cooldown, so just buffing that. Protection Paladin's also got a little bit of a buff to Aegis of Light. It's going to be a 3 minute cooldown instead of a 5 minute cooldown. And here you can see an additional change to Shockwave, just making it stun for a lower amount of time. Alright, moving on to the next post, we have a new legendary item for Guardian Druids. Now this is going to be a helm that is going to let Bark Skin instantly grant you 45 rage plus an additional 15 rage over 3 seconds. So very useful, very powerful, especially because later on you're going to see that Guardian Druids have rage generation nerfs all across the board. But very powerful, cool, very powerful, legendary, just good in most situations. As well, you can see here that they have the Artifact Research Compendiums, which are the catch-up mechanics for Artifact Knowledge for ults that you can buy on the ult or you can buy on the main, and just kind of boost you up. I think the maximum is 20. Believe the maximum is 20. We have more legendary changes. Agrimar Stride, it's not loading up right now, but it's the boots that give you a speed boost depending on your haste that all plate wearers can use. Crit is one of the stats that can go ahead and trigger the effect as well. So you're going to get a speed boost based on haste and crit, or haste or crit. Siffuse's Secret's going to work with Dispels, only really for healers. They have a couple of just secondary stat changes on some of these items. Nothing too crazy. This is a new Guardian Druid Legendary. Anything of real note that I can talk about besides just changing some secondary stats? So there's that change to this legendary that's going to be affecting Thunderclap in place of Revenge, because of course Revenge is being changed to do a damage dealer now, and nothing else really as far as big changes to the effects of legendaries, just changes to the secondary stat allocation. Alright, and into some spell changes. Vengeance Demon Hunter 4-piece was changed to Soul Cleave, reduces the remaining cooldown on Demon Spikes up to 3 seconds based on pain spent. Obviously, if you play a Vengeance Demon Hunter, you know that it can spend between 20 to about 40 pain. So I imagine 20, 30, 40 are the breakpoints. 20, it'll reduce it by 1. 40, it'll reduce it by 2. 30, it'll reduce it by 2. 40, it'll reduce it by 3 seconds. So it's giving your Demon Spikes the ability to be off cooldown shorter, as well as working into the fact that Soul Cleave has a range of pain that it can be used. And now we have a couple of really interesting and personally nice and wanted changes to Blood DKs. Blood Tap is now going to reduce the recharge time is going to be reduced by 2 seconds whenever a Bone Shield charge is consumed instead of 1, making it stronger. Your Blood Worms are going to be healing you for 15% of your missing health. Why was it 5% of your missing health? That's dumb. But 15% of your missing health is a lot better. If you're drop below 50% health, it's going to immediately burst and heal you. Personally, I think it should be 15% of your health, not missing health, just your health. They need it. Give them a break. And then Bone Storm is also going to be doing 2% of your maximum health every time it deals damage, which is nice, especially both of these things when you combine with Vampiric Blood being already a stupidly powerful ability. It's just going to be more healing to whenever you want it. Besides Bloodworms, it's a little RNG-ish. Heartbreaker is going to be nerfed to generate 2 additional runic power per target instead of 3. Again, they're trying to balance all the talents a little bit better, bringing some up, nerfing others very slightly. March of the Dam is going to be buffed for Blood Decays to be 100% longer Wraith Walk, not 50%. And Mark of Blood is going to be buffed to be 3% of the victim's maximum health every time they get auto-attacked instead of 2. Still don't see this being taken, to be completely honest. Rapid Decomposition is going to be Death and Decay deals damage 15% more often, and while in your Death and Decay, you're going to get 1 runic power per second. Rune Tap is going to be reducing all damage taken by 40% for 3 seconds. Hallelujah, this is a fantastic return to form. They need the help. Rune Tap is going to be used. I almost guarantee it's going to be used all the time. And then Tightening Grass is going to reduce the cooldown of Gorfine's Grasp by 30 seconds. And Will of the Necropolis, damage taken below 35% health is reduced by 35% instead of 20. So another little buff to ability, hopefully to encourage you to want to take it in specific scenarios. Alright, and for Vengeance Demon Hunters in this build, they went ahead and buffed Blade Turning to 70% additional pain generation on your next year instead of 65%. Clearly trying to push that into being used. They messed around with where Demonic Infusion was going to be again. Remember, it's a 110 talent. Fell Devastation got moved back to where it was originally 108 instead of being switched with Demonic Infusion. Soul Barrier got a little bit of a nerf to its massive buff to healing, but it's still going to be used and frankly good. And then this is the change I mentioned earlier with Spirit Bomb becoming fire damage to all nearby enemies and giving them frailty, which means it's going to scale with your Charred Warblade's artifact trait. Now, an interesting thing that they did here for Vengeance was that they reduced the power of Demon Spikes. It's going to reduce physical damage you take by 10% for 6 seconds instead of 20, but Demonic Wards is going to reduce all damage you take by 10% versus before only being magic. The point of this is that they reduced how tanky you are when you have Demon Spikes active, but increased how tanky you are without it. The problem that Vengeance Demon Hunters have been having recently is that with Demon Spikes up, they're very tanky. Without it, they fall flat on their face. And this helps even that out so that when you don't have your active mitigation up, you're more tanky, making a little bit more fair. It's overall a buff to the spec as a whole, making it less punishing for the moments when you do not have Demon Spikes, which is a very nice change. Overall, it's not going to be, overall it's a buff, but it's not a huge, amazing, crazy buff. It's just making it a little bit easier in the quality of life, honestly. And for Guardian Druids, they actually are increasing the effectiveness of some of their talents. Incarnation Guardian of Ursoc is now going to increase your armor by 15% while it's being used, which is fantastic. It previously did not have any sort of real defensive benefit, as well as adding a new ability called Intimidating Roar. This replaces Displacer Beast because Guardian Druids no longer have that. It unleashed a terrifying roar, causing all enemies within 10 yards to cower in fear, disorienting them for 3 seconds. Usable in all shapes and forms. It's basically like a 3-second stun, essentially. It's going to replace an Intimidating Roar. And I believe it does not break on damage. One of the things I have to test for you guys. Trust me, I'll get to it. But it seems like it's a nice new ability. As well, Soul of the Forest, also on the same tier as Incarnation and Galactic Guardian. Mangle generates 7 more rage and deals 25% more damage. Then a couple of changes to Protection Paladins. Blessed Hammer getting a little bit of a nerf to be 12% less damage when you hit them with it instead of 15% on the next auto attack. Holy Shield being increased to 15% block chance and still allowing you to block spells. Successful blocks deal damage. And then finally, a couple of changes to some Protection Warrior talents. It's going to be Anger Management is going to be also reducing the cooldown of Demoralizing Shout, so it's been added to it. Booming Voice, Demoralizing Shout is going to generate 60 rage instead of 50. It increases the damage you deal to affected targets by 25 instead of 20. Crackling Thunder is going to increase the radius of Thunderclap by 50%, not 100. And then Into the Fray is going to give you 3% haste for each enemy within 15 yards, up to 5 enemies. So a little bit of a range buff, not too crazy, nothing amazing. Never Surrender is going to be increasing Ignore Pain. Ignore Pain will ignore up to 100% more damage based on missing health. So a nice little buff to ability that hasn't really been used too often. Ravager's getting a little bit of a buff. The parry chance you're going to get from it is 35% instead of 30%. Safeguard's also getting a little bit of a buff. It's going to cause 30% of the damage that a friendly takes to be transferred to you instead of 20%. Shockwave, as I said earlier, is going to get reduced from 4 seconds stun to 3 seconds stun. Warlord Challenge is going to get an added effect of reducing the cooldown of Berserker Rage by 15 seconds. So you're going to get to use it more often, taunt more things, and make them move faster towards you. And then you still have the change for Shield Slam where Devastate, Thunderclap, and Revenge have a 30% chance to reduce the cooldown of Shield Slam. So hopefully you'll have way more Shield Slams because you're going to be using that Rage and Revenge. Give you a nice little benefit, and Thunderclap's going to give you 5 Rage instead of 3 Rage. Now, another important thing that I wanted to go ahead and talk about 7.1.5 is the change to secondary stat scaling, where you're going to need more of each secondary stat to scale up higher and be better. It's going to change a couple of things for each of the tanks. You're going to want different things. Overall, it's going to affect the entire game. There's nothing that you really can try to game with it too much, nothing to really do. It's also important that jewelry, the secondary stats on jewelry, neck, rings, things like that, is going to go up massively. So while right now maybe an eye level difference of anywhere from 30 to 50 maybe, depending on if you have a socket and some sort of tertiary stat on it, may not be as big of a difference. There's maybe just like 100 stats in between. Now it's going to be a much bigger deal. If you can see here, a 905 live, 751 on PTR, it's going to be 959. Big stat change. You want to get higher eye level rings ASAP, so when the patch drops, you can go ahead and equip it because it's higher eye level, more stats. Not necessarily the stats you want, but more stats. The thing to note here is the artifact catch-up system. The way it was currently working in the PTR was that on the character that you want to have higher artifact knowledge, you can purchase for 500 order resources and artifact knowledge level up to 15. They're bind on pickup, so you can only use them on the character that you complete the quest on. But for alt characters, you can purchase on your main for 1,000 order resources a compendium. What these do is that they let you level up to a certain level, but your main has to have a certain level of artifact knowledge. So if my main has artifact knowledge 21, I can purchase the one that's up to account level or artifact knowledge level 20 and give it to other characters so they can have up to 20 immediately. From what I can tell, you don't need to purchase all of these. So you don't have to go from volumes 1 to 3 to you don't have to go from 5, 10, 15, 20. I think you can just purchase the 20 if you're already at that point with your artifact knowledge, which by the time this patch comes out, everyone should be if they've been playing since the beginning of Legion. So you should be able to just purchase this and give your alts artifact knowledge 20, which is going to be massively helpful. All right, we're almost there, team. Almost at the end of it. Next is a change to a legendary for Brewmaster Monks. Fortifying Brew cooldown now reduced by 2 seconds up to a maximum of 6 seconds from 1 second with a maximum of 4 seconds. What does this mean? Each enemy you hit with Breath of Fire reduces the cooldown of Fortifying Brew by 2 seconds up to a maximum of 6 seconds. Basically, the more things you hit, the more you reduce the cooldown of Fort Brew. Mostly AoE legendary, but Fortifying Brew does have that really big cooldown and a lot of things reduce it, so might be a little more useful than some of the other tanks have, but not particularly awful legendary. And here's a big, massive change. So Blood DK's Vampiric Blood is going to increase the healing and absorbs received by 30%. That absorbs part is particularly interesting because this potentially could work with your blood shield. This could potentially work with your bone shield, which is basically just an absorb shield. This works with other healers' absorb shields. This will work with the legendary ring or legendary neck absorb shield, the legendary trinket absorb shield. It's all absorbs. Vampiric Blood is already one of the most powerful cooldowns in the game with the Blood DK kit. This just gives it more power, which is dangerous because that's still too much power in one ability, which makes them weak outside of it. But when you have this up, you're going to be even more immortal than you currently are. And again, I make the joke one more time. Maybe we'll actually get to see Blood Shield now from time to time. You can see here another revert to the Soul Barrier buff. So it was buffed, it was nerfed back down a little bit, then it was buffed back to where it was originally. You can see that they want to push this Soul Barrier on Demon Hunters. I can tell you right now, most people that are checking everything out are saying that you're going to want to be using Soul Barrier. I've been saying from the beginning that soul fragments are basically your secondary resource. I find this super cool. It's adding another absorb mechanic to the game that's going to be used more often, which might be a little bit bad if everyone remembers how crazy Guard got. But Demon Hunters, they need a little bit of a buff. I think it's going to be okay for them. It's going to be good overall. So dampen harm, it's going to be reducing all damage you take by 20% to 50% for 10 seconds, with larger attacks being reduced by more. This is a talent. It's going to be competing with dampen harm and healing elixirs, and it's potentially stupidly strong. You have to imagine, if you're getting hit by something that's really, really hard hitting, like we're talking some mythic level stuff, maybe Odin, maybe Helya on mythic, you can theoretically for 10 seconds reduce all damage you take by 50%. This is like a shield wall ability that you can talent into. It's going to heavily depend on what you're doing though, because it'd be very easy to waste it by only having 20% damage reduction for 10 seconds. But even then, that's 20% damage reduction for 10 seconds. No matter what happens, you're getting some sort of value out of this, especially in situations where you're not going to want diffuse magic because there's not magical damage that you have to worry about. And also you're not going to have to worry about healing yourself up with healing elixirs. It's going to depend because it's all damage. So if there's a nice healthy mix of physical and magical, obviously you're going to want to take this because diffuse magic is only magical. But it's very situational, but it's a nice change. Leave it at that. Elusive Dance is getting a little bit of a buff. It's going to grant you up to 20% dodge and damage done for 6 seconds, up from 15. And Gift of the Mist is going to go up as well to 75% increased chance to trigger, not 60. New ability, Mystic Vitality, is going to have... Now, this changed. This is what I'm about to say is not true, but it gets nerfed but changed a little bit, so just keep that in mind. Stagger is not fully effective against magical attacks. Right now, your stagger, for the most part, is a baseline thing that you get. You use Iron Skin Brute to have more of it up, and a percentage of that is magic damage is always going to be staggered at a much lower rate than physical. This talent makes it so that you're staggering a higher amount of magical damage, and with the changes that I'll show you coming right towards the end of this video, you're going to see that you're going to be put into a situation where you can almost have the same level of stagger for magical damage that you do for physical damage, and that's really fucking strong. They're already the kings of physical damage, because while they get hit with a big hit and they put a dot on themselves, with proper management of your bruise, I should say, you can just purifying it off, and the damage just disappears. It goes off into the nether. You never have to deal with it again. Very, very powerful talent. This alone could make them the sleeper tanks of Nighthold. Alright, getting towards the end, you can see here that the next change is the Archimonde's Hatred Reborn. That's the new trinket that's going to be coming out. That's going to be for tanking. As you can see, like what I was saying earlier, instead of 100% of the damage of the shield expiring, that damage being done, it's 75% of the damage that's absorbed is dealt out. As you can see, this is making it to the final product here on the 15th of December. So just more nerfs for this trinket because it was frankly stupidly overpowered. You can then see as a Guardian Druid, Galactic Guardian got a little bit of a nerf. It's only going to give you 8 rage instead of 10. And Soul of the Forest is going to give you 6 rage instead of 7. Just a part of further changes to Guardian Druids. You can see here that Mangle for Guardians also is only going to generate 5 rage instead of 6 rage. They're reducing the rage generation of Guardian Druids. Frankly, Guardian Druids are the best tanks. After these changes, they're still very likely to be the best tanks. To be honest with you guys, your first tier of talents is rage generation or damage from brambles. Guess what's been taken this entire expansion? Brambles. You've almost never had a situation where you need to take Bristling Fur, which is single target, or on Blood Frenzy, there you go, which is the AoE rage generation. You've almost never had a reason to take them. You always have enough rage for everything. You're swimming in, well, not swimming in it, but you're fine. You can manage it. There's a bunch of targeted nerfs to Guardian Druid rage generation, which is going to make taking those talents be more lucrative. That's why you don't see changes to those talents. You just see changes to the baseline generation. Does it suck? Yes. Is it as much fun? No. But again, these are small little like 2-3 rage less each time one of these things happen, and it makes the other 2 talents be actually needed in situations. As much as I love doing damage, I love brambles, I think that's healthy for the game in the long run, and I think it's fine changes for the Guardian Druid. Here you can see that Brewmasters have that change that I was talking about, Mystic Vitality. It's 40% more effective against magical attacks, right? But your stagger was changed, so stagger, baseline, you shrug off attacks, delaying 40% of physical damage instead of taking it over 10 seconds. Affects magical attacks at 50% effectiveness. Okay? So, then when you take Mystic Vitality, it's now 40% more effective against magical attacks. I don't think that makes it equal 90% because that's not how math works. Remember, I'm shit at math, but it basically makes it so you're staggering a bunch more stuff. And remember that when you use Iron Skin Brew, it raises your stagger, which is going to raise the amount of magical damage you stagger, which is going to raise the amount that Mystic Vitality staggers, making you a tanky motherfucker. Brewmasters, sleeper tanks, I'm telling you, I'm calling it right now. If it wasn't for the fact that my Guardian Druid is so geared, I might have to switch to my Monk. And here you can see one more targeted nerf. Gory Fur is one of the golden traits for Druids. It's going to make Mangle have a 15% chance to reduce the rage cost of your next Iron Fur Mark Reversal by 25%, not 50. This is a much bigger change than the other ones, except for the fact that Gory Fur doesn't always actually activate. Ultimately, it's, again, what I was saying, a targeted nerf to the rage generation. It'll probably be fine. Probably. Unless they bug something out. Alright team, when we come to the last set of changes, most recent ones, I think these actually came out yesterday if I'm not, these should have come out sometime before, I think it was just a few days ago, Tuesday of this week, but again, this is basically the latest notes and more legendary changes. You can see here that Archimonde's Hatred was changed to its final incarnation. I've been showing you this entire time. 40% of your max health, 75% of that damage is absorbed and shot out at everybody. They changed the neck to shield you for 25% of your health, down from 30%, and they took away some of the mastery and made it so that it gives you an equal amount of crit, haste, and mastery. Overall, right now on live, I believe the absorb shield is 15% of your max health. 30% was probably too much. That's why they lowered it to 25%. It's still going to happen every single 30 seconds, and you have a better stat spread as well as still having a socket. Overall, still going to be fantastic for tanks. Maybe not every class is going to want to use it, but holy shit, as a tank legendary, if you got this, feel lucky. It's great. It's fantastic. Don't complain about it. Very good change overall. Then they also changed the belt to be 90% health again instead of 85%. They changed that to 85% health to kind of give it a little bit of a buff. They reverted that. So if you're a monk, a druid, or a demon hunter, you have this, just know it was changed. Spirit of the Darkness Flame, we talked about that a little bit earlier. It's still going to be Firebrand, heals you for 100% of the damage done, and next Firebrand is 15%. Again, these legendary items were changed multiple times, but the tooltip that you see is the final product right now in the PTR as of the 15th. Another change to Guardian Druid Legendary, the new one that's coming in, the helmet is going to give you 45 rage plus an additional 15 rage over 3 seconds instead of 40 rage plus an additional 40 rage, or plus an additional 40 rage over 4 seconds. So it's going to be giving you more upfront, less over time. You can see here that the Legendary Protection Paladin belt, it's going to be increasing the healing done of your Avenging Wrath by an additional 50% and increasing the damage done by 20%. Quick note that you should know about, Retribution Paladins are losing access to Greater Blessing of Might, but their baseline damage is being increased by about 12% to benefit that. Not that a tank should ever really have gotten Greater Blessing of Might, but if you did, be aware that no longer will exist going forward into this patch as of this PTR patch notes. Another big change is Protection Warrior's Heavy Repercussions got nerfed to increase the duration of shield block by 1 second instead of 1.5 seconds whenever you shield slam, which is honestly with the other rage changes, Revenge being 30 rage, shield block being 15, you might start putting yourself into a situation where maybe you're a little bit rage starved. Revenge's damage also got reduced a little bit. Not liking these warrior changes, if I'm completely honest. I have to get in and actually play it to let you guys know, but I'm a little worried about warrior. To be honest with you, I have a very positive outlook of all the tanks right now except for warrior. And that's that, team. Overall, those are basically, again, I told you this was going to be a long, kind of boring video, but it's been the documentation of all the changes coming up to this point in the PTR for 7.1.5. Overall, what are my thoughts? Most of the changes are good for all the tanks. I very easily, if we were just going alphabetical order, Blood Decays, they're going to be better. Way better. They're getting the changes that they need so that their mechanics aren't just broken. They're getting stronger talents to help to boost them up. Vampire Blood's going to be even more OP, which maybe isn't the best because they need more baseline damage reduction. But overall, fantastic for Blood Decays. Looking at Paladins. or not alphabetical order, but from armor class. Paladins, I see them, they're in a solid state right now. They don't need a lot of changes. They have just a couple of little number tweaks here and there from what we saw earlier in the talents. Nothing too crazy changing with them, but honestly, they're in a good spot. They don't need anything to change really for them. Warriors, I'm freaking worried about Warriors, honestly. The fact that they're changing, it seems like a small change, right? Oh, just take away Focus Rage, put Revenge in there. But the problem is, it is a gameplay change, and they're changing their rage costs at the same time. And they've never had the easiest of rage costs. They've kind of fallen a little bit out of favor with the changes that they made in the middle of Emerald Nightmare because of how overpowered Ignore Pain was. I think that they'll probably be fine, but I think the gameplay of them is going to be damaged a little bit. I have to get in and test it. I cannot give you for sure my opinions until the patch actually comes out with the changes. I will test it on the PTR. I probably won't make a video until the patch actually comes out. And that goes with all these changes. Do not expect a guide until the week of the patch being out, because frankly, I don't want to say something that's going to get changed immediately through the next week of PTR changes, and I want to really provide intelligent, good content when the thing is live. Moving over to Druids, I think that the nerfs are warranted. They're very, very powerful. They need to be nerfed a little bit. Rage generation nerfs kind of suck, but it makes you have to use two talents that you frankly barely use now, making you have more thought processes. It's nice that they're changing some of the other talents, Incarnation and Soul of the Forest, so that you might actually want to use it. Soul of the Forest and single target, Incarnation when you want to have that extra armor and you want a big beefy cooldown instead of just using Galactic Guardian all the time. I can easily see Soul of the Forest being the single target, Galactic Guardian being the AoE, along with Pulverize being brought back into the mix, doing such an enormous amount of damage that you're going to have to use it on single target and Rend and Tear for AoE, which is going to be just fine. Looking at Vengeance Demon Hunters, I like that Metamorphosis is getting more interaction. I hated the fact that Havoc had actual spell changes and Vengeance didn't. So I like that Shear's going to become improved. I like that they're getting more armor, more health. It's just going to be a lot more tanky. Last Resort getting nerfed sucks, but at the same time, you almost always took that talent anyways. And the fact that it's going to reset our normal deaths will be nice, so you'll be able to proc it. If you maybe get a little cheesy, but we're not going to try to exploit or shit, anything like that. As well as just in general, some of their other talent changes, bringing some other ones into the fold, but not making a lot of the other talents weaker, just making them stronger, making them more tanky. I like that. I like Vengeance. I've told you 1,000 times. I love that spec, so more buffs to them is good, especially because they're in a little bit of a spiky spot. I don't think they're going to be the best. It's going to be very difficult to take that away from Druids and Paladins, but oh shit, here comes Brewmaster Monk, the sleeper hit. I think that they're going to be the go-to tanks in Nighthold, honestly. There's just... They were tanky in TOV, and everyone knew it. Everyone has known for a while now, Brewmasters. Brewmasters are really strong. Brewmasters don't bring a lot of unique stuff, but holy shit can they tank. And if TOV has taught us anything, it is that, sadly, Blizzard might have to overtune things to deal with the rampant gear, legendaries, artifact points, all that kind of stuff. So if you have a tank that can just drink its way through all magical and physical damage, I'm telling you, I think Brewmaster are going to be the sleeper hit. They're either going to be the best or second best tanks after Guardian Druids, unless some crazy big changes happen. Overall, positive opinions on all the tanks besides Warrior. The Warrior one looks kind of weird, but I think that they're going in a positive direction for the way that the tanks actually play and talent choices. As far as the game goes, holy shit, more legendaries, more things they have to worry about. I don't even want to think about it. I can't wait for more artifact traits, right? But for the most part, that's my current thoughts on all the changes. This video has been long, it's been boring, it's been monotonous, it just keeps going. I know, but I need to get through this. This is my process, and I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Again, I want to just say thank you for all the support. I hope you guys liked the video. Comment down below if you want to give me some engagement. Let YouTube actually show my video, help me out, because again, if I don't get views and stuff, I can't continue to do this as much as I enjoy it. The channel will die, just frankly speaking, because of algorithm changes that they've done. But I hope that I was able to provide an interesting jumping off point moving forward from this point forward for my audience and for this content as far as what changes have happened that affect tanks. On that note, I'm also trying to make a new opener and ending for my videos. This isn't going to have the standard, basic, boring opener and ender that I've been using since that I started using. But if anyone knows anything about that, let me know. I'm looking to change it up. I have no money because I'm poor as fuck, but I want to try to learn to maybe do a cooler intro, cooler outro. Any of you guys talented, you want to help me out, let me know. Follow me on Twitter if you want to hear news from me. I don't tweet too much, but that's because I don't really get too many follows. And let's just move forward. Let's actually do this. Every single PTR patch notes from this point forth, I promise to give my opinions so I don't have to go back 10 pages to find them. See you guys around. Thank you for your time. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, go ahead and drop it a like. You can subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content just like this. And I want to thank the time each and every single one of you took out of your day to go ahead and watch this, as well as a very special thank you to my Patreon patrons who continue to make this dream a reality through their monthly continued support. If you'd like to go ahead and become a Patreon patron, you can go ahead and click right there on the logo. It'll take you right to the page. And other than that, you can go ahead and tweet me or follow me at Tauriel here on Twitter. And I hope you guys have a wonderful, fantastic day. See you guys around.
Turns to gray, we'll calmly walk away from the fray. When structure falls and all else fails.